Men get their audacity from women who affirm them. Men get their audacity from women who fear them. Men get their audacity from women who coddle them. Men also get their audacity from women who center them. And lastly, men get their audacity from women who continue to give birth to them. We are all heartbroken over the ruling in Australia tonight and how Sal has worked so hard in this case and raising money. And, we have to remember that Sal is a new mom. She had a baby a little while ago. And you would think that at this point in time, she would be enjoying her baby and enjoying the act that she created. But no, instead, she's in court because a man decided that he wanted to sue her for not being able to use her app. And the ruling in Australia is so tragic because the judge basically said, sex is changeable. You can change your sex. And Sal discriminated against this man because, Sal wouldn't allow this man on her app. So this judge said that sex is changeable. Anyone can wake up in the morning and just change their sex based on what they say. And we all know that that's bullshit. We all know that that's wrong. You cannot change your sex. You cannot change that physical aspect about yourself, because if that were true, every girl and every woman around the planet right now who is undergoing violence because of her sex would just opt out of it. They would wake up in the morning and just say, well, I'm a man now and you can't be violent against me. But we know that's not the case. Right? You can't opt out of sex. You can't opt out of discrimination. And this is a reason why the trans-identified male is a colonizer. And the reason why he got so bold in his colonization of womanhood is because of the pick-me. And this is why the pick-me is very dangerous, because not only did she affirm him, she made it so that he would feel in class to do what he's doing to women who don't want him around. And in doing so, she made sure that while she was affirming him, she was dogpiling every other woman who was not ready to have him in their personal space. So when we say that the pick-me is dangerous, the pick-me is dangerous because the pick-me is a punk. The pick-me is a punk. And the pick-me usually, for the most part, always goes with the trend. And if the trend says something like, sex is changeable, the pick-me will hop on board, because in those conversations, the only person interested in changing their sex to have access to spaces where they are not wanted are men. Women are not going out of their way to kind of break down the doors to get in a male's locker room. Women are not going out of their way to, kick the doors down to get on male sports teams. So when you hear the liberal feminist pick-me, and I'm going to call the liberal feminist a pick-me because that's what she is, she's very dangerous, because now everything that happens after this, all women have to deal with. And all women have to deal with it because there is the pick-me out there that the trans-identified male leans on and says, well, this idiot accepts me, so you have to as well. But the only reason why the pick-me accepts the trans-identified male is because she's male-centered. It's not because she believes that sex can be changeable. She just knows that she doesn't want to challenge anything that a man is saying. And this is the pick-me. The pick-me is not smart. The pick-me goes with the flow. The pick-me affirms and the pick-me coddles, because what else is she going to do? Because the minute that she decides to educate herself, she can never say that changing your sex is something actually true. You cannot change your sex. And we all know that gender, when they do speak about gender and they say that this is complicated, gender has nothing to do with sex. You cannot change your sex. And the fact that this happened in Australia, it basically, this is a historical moment, because now Australia is saying, well, anyone can declare their sex right now in Australia. You don't have to, you know how in some places the trans-identified male may make strides to look more like a woman? In Australia, you don't have to do that. In Australia, you could just be a simple man off of the street and say, well, I'm a woman. I want to go into this woman's restroom. I want to go into this woman's locker room. I want to play sports on this woman's team. I want to take this scholarship from a young girl. And they're able to do it. And by declaration only in Australia, you can get your birth certificate changed. You can get your ID changed overnight. You can get your passport changed. You can get all of these things changed. Easy. And that's so crazy to me because historically we've seen situations where there were women who were victims of domestic violence and they were in hiding from their partners, right? The case that I spoke to you about in California where the woman, she had a stalker and she wanted to get away from this stalker. And the judge gave her shit because, you know, he didn't want to change her name. And what happened to that girl? She passed away, right? Because the stalker found her. And how did he find her? Through a, you know, and we went through the whole story. So this is all just tragic to me. And I just wanted to read some of the comments under, you know, Hazel Appleyard's Instagram. Well, no, Twitter. I'll just stay on Twitter for now. And, everyone is so upset over this. But let's just read it because this is what the judge said. Let's look at Andrew Gold. I think he's pretty cool. Andrew Gold said, the verdict on the world's biggest women's safety and gender woo-woo is in, and it's really bad. It's really bad and fucking insane. This is what he wrote. Indirect gender identity discrimination. Indirect gender identity discrimination. Australia just decided sex is changeable. Those are literally the words the judge used in the Tickle versus Giggle case that will set an incredibly dangerous precedent. Sex is changeable. That's what the judge said. Sal tweets app was for women only. This man pictured, I already posted the picture on YouTube, who gave himself a porno name, Roxy Tickle, has just successfully sued for not being allowed to use it. I'm flabbergasted. She has to pay $10K in damages. This is anti-science. I just sat down and watched a man in a posh judge outfit talk utter mumbo jumbo. Absolutely, it's utter mumbo jumbo. And the comments are saying, let's see. You can change sex, Australian judge, unreal. You can change sex, really, Australia. This is horrible. There's another person who put, can these women change sex? And it's, you know, a group of women under the new Taliban rule. The Taliban rule. And these women, the new Taliban rules are saying basically the women are not allowed to speak in public. No men should hear a woman's voice on a public street. She can only speak inside of her home and around her family. And she also has to have her face completely covered. Before they had the face out optional, but as of August 1st, all of the women, they have to have completely blacked out faces, and they can't have their hands shown as well. This is crazy. Not only has he decided that men are allowed to control women and take over women's businesses, he is basically saying that a business owner can't decide who to do business with. Another person wrote, if women want to stand up against this cultural madness, they need to be prepared to vote exclusively for those politicians and political parties who publicly vow to oppose it. We have a ruling here that effectively erases women's legal existence in Australia. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the reason why I say this before, the reason why I am talking about the pick me is because there are some women out there who don't have a problem with this. And I think women like, for example, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris will scream all day that, you know, trans women are women, but no trans women are in her locker rooms. She doesn't have to use the bathroom with trans women. She doesn't even have to see them. She doesn't have to see them. She doesn't have to have anything to do with them. And, you know, she's responsible for making the laws that claim that they have to be around you. right? And this is the issue. Kamala Harris is another pick-me. And the reason why she is a pick-me is because she's going along with what she knows is a lie. And this is what I said to you before about the pick-me. The pick-me will lie to you. The dangerous pick-me will tell you it's not all men. It's not all men. You know, the trans-identified male is a biological woman. The trans-identified male is a female. These are lies. And the reason why the pick-me and the reason why I say that the pick-me is dangerous is because the pick-me is very male identified. So it makes perfect sense that the pick-me would do everything she can to ensure that men are comfortable in female spaces because she's comfortable with them in her spaces. And you know what's so funny? When West 4B started, I kind of said, I never understood why the pick-me and the man who's red pill won't, you know, jump off into the meadows together. It's like these two groups of people who should find solace in one another. They want nothing to do with one another. Isn't that funny? Because I always said, you know, well, there's room now for the pick-me's to finally be picked because West 4B women or women who are practicing, you know, the real 4B, not the other 4Bs that you hear about with, you know, a whole bunch of, you know, cock and balls in their spaces, but the real 4B, you know, now that we're stepping to the side, you ladies have access to these men now, but for some reason, these men never wanted the pick-me. They never wanted the pick-me. And I think they never wanted the pick-me is because they knew that the pick-me was readily available. And who wants something that is so readily available and desperate? And we know that you're desperate when we do speak of the pick-me because the pick-me is willing to go against all of her senses just so that the male can feel comfortable with her. Similar to the last video. The last video, the wife in that video I found out that she's a whole physician. She's a doctor. And you're a doctor and you're leaving your poor precious babies with an alcoholic who their surveillance showed, and this is just a side note, but the surveillance showed that the father stole beer at a gas station, went to the bathroom, threw them back, and then drove himself home. Like, this is who a doctor is with, of an unemployed man who drinks alcohol and leaves her baby in a hot car for hours on end. So when I say that the pick-me has a disease in the brain, it's actually a disease. In this case, this is a person who's a physician, so everyone would assume that she's smart, but is she smart when it comes to the man that she picked? I don't think so. But her reason for staying is the same reason why we're having the series about the dangerous pick-me. The person who affirms the trans-identified male is a pick-me. The person who affirms a trans-identified male being a biological woman and being a female is a fucking pick-me, because these are lies. You cannot change your sex. You cannot change your sex, and gender ideology is just another ideology, similar to all of the religions, similar to all of the other bullshit that men put on the table that they told women that they should digest. And we know that it's bullshit because, again, women cannot opt out of sex-based violence. Tomorrow morning, all of the women in Afghanistan, all of the women in Iraq, all of the women in Iran, if sex were changeable, they would just be able to wake up and say, well, we don't want to wear these hijabs anymore because sex is changeable. Under their logic, under the logic of all of these new laws being made to, you know, coddle these men who want access to women's spaces. These men are now claiming to be lesbians to get access to women. And women are saying, no, we don't want to have anything to do with you. But the pick-me is saying, no, well, you should accept them because they're females too. And females can be born with a penis. No, that is a lie. And this is why I feel that my female erasure course, I have a section in that course that goes over basic biology and anatomy. And the reason why I put that in my female erasure course is because you have women out there today, pick-me women, saying things like, girl dick, shemis. Instead of penis, they're saying shemis. And all of these new terms and all of these new speak and all of these new terminologies are initiated by men. And the pick-me, you find the pick-me utilizing these same words so that she can be seen as someone in the trend, in the know, following the money, as Jennifer Bielick would say, is especially when it comes to this transgenderism. You don't want to be left out because there could be an opportunity for you to kind of stand up in front of everyone and say that you're an ally. Right? Similar to, I think, Michelle Obama at the DNC convention spoke about, trans children and how we need to accept children for being their authentic selves and all of this bullshit that Michelle Obama was saying. Well, you and I know that if one of her daughters came tomorrow to her home and said that they wanted to transition into a black male, she would be having none of it. Put a comment in the comment section if you disagree with me. Put another comment in the comment section if you do agree with me. If Michelle Obama's children came to her tomorrow and said, Mom, we want you to accept us as our authentic self, and we want to transition into men, into black men. What says you, mother? Yeah, I don't think the Obamas would be having it. Yeah. And this is why I believe that Malcolm X, when he did speak about the liberal, he said that the liberal is more dangerous than the Republican, because the liberal will lie to your face and do something totally different behind your back. The liberal will say, yeah, absolutely, racism is bad. And then behind your back, they, wrote a check to the KKK to keep up the good work. So let me know what you think. I'm going to go back to reading some of these comments. Rachel Wong wrote, sex is changeable. These were the judge's words as he delivered his judgment, finding Giggle guilty of indirect gender identity discrimination against Tickle for refusing his admission to her female-only app. A disappointing but unsurprising outcome, given the judge said at the outset, he would be deciding the case based on what is the law and not what it should be. But unfortunately for women and girls in Australia, our law gives more rights to men who identify as women than to actual women and girls. The fight continues until the sex-based rights of women and girls are restored in Australian law. And every radical feminist would be, flipping over in their grave right now to see that the fifth wave of feminism is involved with defining what a woman is. I think, they probably thought that we had that squared away, but apparently you need to get rid of those definitions so that you can rewrite history for yourself and include yourself in that history. And we know that these laws that you see happening opens up the doors for male perversion, and male perversion infects everything. Like the post that I wrote, or the post that you see in the community space where Genevieve Gluck said, you all knew that there were pedophiles hiding under the LGBTQIA flag. And no man did anything about it. If it weren't for lesbians talking about what they see happening in regards to children and safeguarding and pedophilia and all of those other things, it would have never gotten to where it is now. Because if you leave it up to gay men said nothing. They saw how gay pride looked in 2023 and 2022 and 2021. And they said nothing about the intrusion of, this minor attracted persons movement. They didn't say anything about it. They didn't give a shit. And now they're being considered transphobic because a lot of trans people are saying, well, if you don't sleep with us and if you discriminate against us because of our gender, then that means that you are a homophobe. That means you are transphobic, right? So another comment says, yes, except in his judgment, I think he went beyond the law in declaring his acceptance of cis language. So beyond the law, being an ass, I think this judge is as well. Another comment reads, he'll never be accepted as a woman. Someone else wrote, politicians need to be called out for the legislation passed that changed the pure scientific fact and allows a judgment like this to stand behind laws like this. His honor was made a revolutionary breakthrough in biological science. Call the Nobel Committee. She should change its name to testicles. Another person wrote, women erased in Australia. I despair. What a disaster. Someone else wrote, this judge shouldn't have a job. Someone else wrote, this won't be over yet. Off to the high court this will go. I agree. I think Sal should busy herself with an appeal. I would appeal it as well. It also says, plus the respondents in this case have to pay huge fines. I think it's 10,000 each and pay his legal bills. That's just adding insult to injury. Yeah, that was the judgment that Sal has to pay him, but she won't have to pay if she appeals the decision. Another comment says, maybe the judge can get on a plane and explain it to the women in Afghanistan. The world is beyond any dystopia nightmare now for women. I stand with Sal. Despicable, the best woman in Australia these days, a man. Unreal. Call out all the media who lie about men in dresses. They are not women, they are men. And all of the comments, there's another comment from Turf Club. We all knew the penises would have it. The penis cult of supremacy has it. Well done, misogynist. Disgusting, immoral pigs you are. Sex is changeable. That's odd. There's never been one case where a person has changed their sex. Gender, yes. Sex, never. But again, gender ideology is just an ideology. I challenge the judge to show a female who got a penis and testicles and then ejaculated sperm. Another person wrote, all women on the app just ignored this transgender person. You won, but no lesbian will touch you. And that's another thing, because Tickle identifies as a lesbian. This is why he wants to be all up in a woman's face, because he identifies as a woman and he identifies as a lesbian. But lesbians won't touch him. So a lot of the times, when you see these apps, these dating apps, this is what you're seeing out there. All of these men declaring that they are women, and then they're getting on these apps and saying, well, if you won't date us, you're a bigot. If you won't date us, you're, whatever. Another comment is, what a truly ugly man, both inside and out. Yeah, he's not attractive at all. Another one is, what undeniable and unquestionable evidence does they have that sex is changeable? Can that be explained to me? Another person wrote, Roxanne shall now and forever be called Tess. It's safe and legal fun. Unfortunately, the law is set by policy and interpretation, and a court can only pursue analysis through logical and ultimately often absurd conclusions. Someone else said Australia is dead. Yeah, so you get the gist of it. For the most part, this is where we are. I think that when we do see these cases where these men are saying, it's only a few women who don't like us. Yeah, because the other women who are affirming you are scared of you and they don't want any problems and they don't want to get canceled, and they have sons and they coddle, and this is how they treat men. They center men, they coddle men, they identify with the male brain because that's just what they do. That's what the pick-me does. And therefore the pick-me can never be a true ally to women who are just like her. This is why when I started West 4B, I said the pick-me should find the man who's also in his red pill days, and they should just get together and jump off into the sunset. But for some reason, those two ships, they keep missing each other. And I don't understand why. Because if the red pill man is saying, well, I love women who are traditional, and I love women who are submissive, and I love women who are doing all of these things, and the pick-me is over there waving her hand until it falls off, why won't he pick her? Because that's what I said when I first started West 4B. Pick the pick-me. She's available. She's mid-shelf, bottom shelf, and she's willing and able to do anything that you want. But for some reason, and you know what's so interesting? I also said this as well. For some reason, the red pill guy doesn't pick her. She's never picked the pick-me. Do you notice that? And even if she's picked, she's always in a situation where it's the worst situation that one could be in. It's a situation that nobody else wants. And on the surface, she'll pretend that it's a good situation, but we all know the truth. But yeah. I'm really sad for Sal, but I think she can appeal. Um, in my mother's country, we say nobody died, nothing really happened. So you still have hope. But yeah, get into the comments. Let me know what you think. Yeah.